Welcome to George Mason University Libraries. This is Joanne Henson, Business and Economics Librarian. I'm here to tell you a little bit about how to find good information for your business research. Before we get started, I would just like to give you a little bit of information that you'll need in all of your classes. I have this guide that I hope that you'll check out, infoguides.gmu.edu/business, and there's a link on this page that will help you to schedule an appointment. Before we get started with that, I would like to talk just for a moment about why it's important to understand the value of good information. There's so much information out there that one of our objectives is to help you to understand why you need to get good information, not just find articles on a topic. So let's take a look at that. This is probably one of the better reasons that you need. The School of Business undergraduate learning goals includes our students will demonstrate an understanding of how research in the business disciplines contributes to knowledge and how such research is conducted. I think this is important for you to think about. One of the things that really creates a well-educated person is understanding how to really understand information and the good and the bad. Let's start with taking a look at the different types of literature that are available to you on the internet as well as through Mason Libraries resources. The first that I'd like to talk about is general popular literature. This is what really everyone reads, the magazines that you're probably familiar with, and this is some information on how to determine what that is. Here are some examples of those types of resources. So you see Forbes and Business Week. Those could be considered business information, but because everyone reads them, not just people in business, we would consider this more of a popular resource. And then next we have scholarly works, probably the most important, particularly while you're students here in the university, you are scholars. This is the type of literature that you read as you're learning about your discipline, as you're learning about your subject areas. Very intense research, and here's a little bit of a description about this. Of course, we'll talk to you more about this in the class, but a distinct body of work that is very important and highly credible research. Examples: Academy of Management Journal, Business Ethics Quarterly, Journal of Business Research. You'll come to recognize what these types of journals look like the more that you start to read the literature in your subject area. Then we have trade journals and magazines. More in-depth information of field and industry written by professionals within the field. A little more information about that. Brief articles. We use trade journals in our jobs. So if you go into a profession that is not academic, there's a good possibility that you'll be using trade journals with your work instead of scholarly articles. And these are examples of those. Beverage world, industrial management, things that people use to talk to each other within their business goals. So our last type of resource that we're discussing today is newspapers. And newspapers are very important because this is what you use to find out what's going on right now in the moment. The most current information is in newspapers. So keep that in mind when you're really trying to find out exactly what's happening right now, today. The most current news rather than in-depth coverage that you get in those other resources. And these are examples: the Wall Street Journal and the Business Times. Of course, Financial Times and New York Times are really good examples of newspaper sources, particularly for business information, but general information as well. So the next thing that we're going to talk about, now that you understand the types of sources, we need to evaluate these resources. And we do this with a tool. There are quite a few different types of this type of tool. This one is Radar, and I think you can kind of get an idea of the different aspects of this. Discussing the rationale. What is the point of this article? Who wrote it? This is authority, and if you don't see an author, maybe the authority would be the publication itself if it's a credible resource. Date is important. Sometimes you need the most current information, but obviously if you're doing historical research, you can use older types of resources. Just really depends on the topic. And accuracy, I always try to look at whether or not they're misspelled words or poor punctuation, whether or not you see some facts that you know just aren't true, I would walk away from that article and find another if you see that kind of inaccuracy. And then relevancy is important because you need to really understand whether or not this article is related to your topic before you need to use it. So now I'd like to talk to you about how to find these articles in the library. We have an incredible collection of resources that I hope you'll use. This will really help you with time saving because these are places where you will find things that we've already determined in the libraries to be excellent resources. So this is a database list, and these are the databases that we recommend primarily for your business research and in your classes. Business Source Complete and ABI Inform, excellent resources to find trade, scholarly, news resources, pretty much any type of literature that you need. And then Factiva, in my opinion, is the best resource for news articles to get the most current international information, find out what's going on now, not just today, but in the moment. As breaking news comes in, Factiva reports on that. Really a great source of finding out the most recent information. And now let's take a look at where these databases are and how to get to them. So from the library homepage, you'll see something that looks like this. So when you go to library.gmu.edu, you're going to see a box that says databases. And again, when you click on this box, it will take you to the database portal where you'll find those resources that I just showed you. So now let's talk about what to do with those articles once you find them. I'm a big fan of Boolean searching, and this is really the best way to get the most precise searches for your topic. Once you become comfortable with using Boolean operators, and these are the Boolean operators, you'll learn ways to really focus your research and get the best possible articles. And then we have truncation. Truncation symbol, these are the symbols. When you put one of these symbols behind the beginning of a word, it will give you all of the words that start with what you put in. So, for example, ECON with one of these symbols here will give you economist, econometrics, etc. So now here's a research question for you to think about. So this is a question that typically comes in the form of a sentence. When you use the databases, you really want to do Boolean searching, and you want to phrase your, you want to turn your research question into a series of keywords based on your question. And here's an example. Using a Boolean technique, work environment would be a keyword that you could potentially use to start to explore this topic that we're looking at. And then you want to think of other ways to say work environment. So we could say or corporate culture. Okay, two different ways of saying perhaps the same thing. Work environment or corporate culture, when you put those two words in quotation marks, it will keep them together in your search results. And then now I'm getting a little fancier here. I'll take either work environment or the or connector will give you either this or this, but we have to have this in quotation marks to keep the words together. And now I'm separating this as a concept by adding the parentheses. So this is one concept. The and connector will connect with the second concept, either success or happiness. I have to have either one of these words in my results. And then now, even further, I've added a third concept of professional development. So all of these words are in quotation marks to keep them together. You would get broader results without the quotation marks. So then, something to think about. I need another way to say what I'm looking for. So for professional development, I chose training, but I'd like for you to think for a few minutes about other ways to say training. Here's some more help tools for you. I do on my guide that I showed you in the beginning have search tips, and my appointment scheduler is right here. You can get in touch with me, and I hope that you will, because I'd love to meet with you and help you. And just a closing thought, something to think about. Way back in the 1980s, George Carlin agrees. Thank you so much. Let me know how I can help. I'm happy to do so.